that time again. Another community conversation live from the Assembly of the Saints AOS studio in Omaha, Nebraska. You're stuck with me again tonight. I'm Gary Ballard. We're looking forward to the community discussion tonight. We want you to feel free to join in. We're having an interactive discussion, and you're more than welcome to participate. We may even open up the phone line. We have a very special guest this evening. It's Wednesday, August 24th, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And trust me, we have another amazing guest. And it's about to get real. We're so grateful for our guest tonight, the one and only Mrs. Tamika Mease. Tamika Mease is from right here in Omaha, Nebraska, and she is the executive director of our very own North Omaha Community Partnership. She is a community organizer. She is so much more, and she will be letting you know. Now, the wind that you hear in the background is not feedback. It is not noise. Those are fans blowing. The community helped themselves to some of the copper in our units. And we have not replaced those yet. We have replacements on deck, but y'all understand. So it's a little warm in Omaha tonight, and we're going to thug it out. We have Mrs. Mease here with us, and we could have been a little bit more gentlemanly-like and brought the portable AC in, but it's going to get heated anyway. When we start talking about things that are important to the community, right, important to our people, you know, we get passionate, we get heated. So we have a good little selection of cold drinks, and we can get some towels and napkins, and we're going to make it do what it do. Thank you for joining us. Those of you on Fanbase, thank you for being here. Those of you listening on Facebook, those of you all listening on YouTube, thank you for taking the time to listen. We would love your feedback, and we would love for you to tune in live sometime so that you could participate in our community conversations. Surely they're relevant wherever you are as well. And at this time, we will have our very special guest introduce herself to us more formally, and we will get to know at this time Mrs. Tamika Mease. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it. As you said, my name is Tamika Mease, and I serve as the Executive Director and President of North Omaha Community Partnership, which is an organization that I've also founded right here in North Omaha. I've always been active in our community. It's always been my mission to rebuild, uplift, and empower our community and the people that live in it. So, you know, that's a passion of mine. That and the work that I take seriously, and so that's what I do when I'm not working in the corporate world. That's what I'm doing.
All right. Let us know when the foundation, the organization, was founded.
It was actually founded in 2020. Well, I take that back. It was founded in 2019, but I got really serious about it in 2020. And that was when the pandemic hit in March of 2020. Our organization started doing cleaning supply giveaways. It was, you had food and pantries and things, but, during that time, it was like, cleanliness is key, in our community, you couldn't even find toilet paper at that time, So I got together with some other partners, and, this was, backed by the community. We didn't receive any special funding, no grant money to do it. It was all, the passion of community leaders, entrepreneurs. We all got together, and our first time doing it, our goal was to serve 50 families. We ended up buying enough supplies to serve. We actually served 101 families that first time, but we did that in 45 minutes at the Matoya Event Center off a lake, and we had Lake Street backed up from every direction. And we ended up turning away at least 60 cars, and it broke my heart. So I knew we had to go bigger and better. And so that is really when I gained more passion and the momentum to serve my community. So after 2020, we really started going hard with it.
Okay. If there's anything that I've learned, anyone out here in the community, obviously there's a deep love in the motivation. There's a passion in the motivation to serve.
Right.
That started long before 2019, I'm
yes.
sure. Give me a little background. Like what, so you're wired that way, and or is it a response to some experiences? Like there's always a story. There's always a why
yes.
and a how.
There is definitely a why, okay?
If you can share it.
Yes, I don't mind sharing it at all.
Can I push your mic a little closer?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm born and raised in North Omaha, actually in the Miami Park area. Miami Park, 40th Ave was the area I grew up in. Coming up, in the 80s and early 90s, just my environment,
Yeah.
my environment was not a good one. And there were some choices that I made that were not good choices, as a teen, and they sent me away. They said, get her out of here, get her out of here. I was a Navy brat. My mother was in the Navy, and at that time she was stationed in Great Lakes, Illinois, getting ready to get stationed in Portsmouth, Virginia. And they said, get her out of here. We're going to save her life. We're going to get her out of here. Well, until you change your mentality is when your life will truly change.
Right.
We had no family in Virginia, didn't know anybody. But as soon as I stepped foot, I gravitated towards that negative crowd and found myself, in deeper trouble. Nothing that you could fathom as a 14-year-old being from little old Omaha, Nebraska. Once I got in there, in the big city and got to know the big boys, there. So, I lived a life that I wasn't really proud of. And then there came a time where, I had a daughter, I was a mother, and I wanted more, and I wanted to be someone that she could be proud of. And so I knew I had to change my life, change my life for the better. And I found myself causing destruction in my community while I was here in Omaha. Went to Virginia, did the same thing, came back for a year, did the same thing, and then went back to Virginia less than a year later and just created destruction on a broader level. And God saved me. He saved me from prison time. I was able to walk into a courtroom and not even have to go through a trial. Everything was dismissed. The judge dismissed everything. And I knew that was God, and I knew that I needed to change my life. And I looked at everything that I had done, everything I was told I wasn't going to be. And I knew that the power was within me to make that change. And I knew that I could help other young people that, live some of my experience, walked in my shoes that could relate. And if I could figure it out and change my life, if I gave my testimony and helped them through it, they could figure it out too. And so when I moved back here, I want to say after the Hurricane Isabel, I moved back here in 2005. My youngest son was 2. And that's when I started getting involved really with the community. And back then you didn't have like all of the YP organizations and the support organizations, for entrepreneurs or young professionals. You didn't have that when I moved back here. And I always say, and, I'm going to call it how I see it. I felt like the generation before me kind of dropped the ball. They didn't pass me the baton. They left me hanging, so we kind of had to figure out things on our own. And so I was back here to figure it out. And I started, with my kids' school and, going to city hall, city council meetings, planning department meetings, learning what's going on in Omaha. And I saw some things that I didn't like. And, I decided to, make a change and work with our youth and work with different organizations, to promote entrepreneurship, self-sustainability, and then after working with that for so long, I'm like, man, I can't even talk about some of this stuff until we address what's most important, and that's basic needs. How am I going to, motivate you for you to think about going to college or starting your own business when you worried about what you're going to eat? If you're going to have lights when you go home, so that's when I kind of changed my trajectory of how I approached the issues in our community. So that's when I started focusing more on mental behavioral health and addressing the basic needs and building from there. But the only thing was there wasn't any organizations that I could relate to or that I could trust, or that the community could trust to really work with, the people in our community to, help them, because it seemed like everyone that was around that was doing this nonprofit work, it was for them, and they did just enough to turn in these data sheets, to keep getting that money coming in, to send their kids to college, for them to build houses away from North Omaha, out in Elkhorn, Papillion, Bennington, and so I really thought about it, and I'm like, man, this is kind of how the system was designed. It was never designed for our people to become self-sufficient enough for them to even think about creating generational wealth. These organizations are giving them just enough to stay afloat and to come back for more, so they can keep using those numbers to keep getting more money, and I said I wanted to change that. And so, further down, years, as I was able to, fund these initiatives with my own money, because there's certain money that I won't take, because you will not come in and tell me how to run my program and tell me what I can say and what I can't say. You can keep that money.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of figure some things out, but I did, decide, along with the team of people that, thought like I do, step out and let's help our community and let's teach them to be self-sufficient, and for so long we've accepted outsiders to come in and kind of give us the answers. We have the answers. We can do it ourselves. We don't need the outsiders to come in and tell us how to do things. So I've said this for years now. I'm coming to take my community back. And every day that I work, that is what I strive to do. Every time I talk to our youth, talk to our parents, that is what I implement in that discussion. We are taking our community back. We're taking our youth back, and we're going to build from that. And from, my experience and my beliefs, it starts with the family, the foundation of the family. And I think that we've gotten away from that, just systemically. We've been conditioned to think we don't need the mother and the father together to form the family to raise the children, you know. And so I teach that, and I'm going to continue to, you know, promote that, because that is the foundation, and that's how we're going to be able to get to where we're going.
I wish I had one of Clue's bombs I could drop. I'm gonna get some sound effects on this board. I'm gonna be ready next time. All right, you just laid the map and the blueprint for what we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna go back to the beginning. I'm already glad. Like I'm full. I'm already a little bit full. When you talked about being a military brat in the home, there are probably some stories you can't tell about your upbringing. There was probably, if you're a military brat, there's some structure, semblance of structure, expectations, just positive communication. None of our parents were perfect. They taught us sometimes better than they modeled, but that's all of us.
Right.
We're parents. We tell you the best, and then you do the best you can with the good information we give you. Right.
Right.
We are who we are at different ages and stages of our lives. Sometimes we're curious, we're courageous, rebellious, boisterous, all the whatever makes us who we are at that time, right? This is why testimonies are testimonies, because looking at you, I would have never thought 40th Ave, because I know what 40th Ave is. Out here in the streets, the same years as you. So I know what 40th Ave is all about. I know people who live on 40th Ave. I don't want to say the names, but the names are going through our head.
Right.
Family. So, you know, I want, now this question I'm asking you is not necessarily for you to answer to the young ladies, but for the young ladies. I want to dig in on this right here, though. I want to dig in and have a little bit of a hood conversation sidebar, right? Because we can look at social media, we can look at, there's, and a lot of these blogs and vlogs and podcasts right now, there's this talk about some of the dynamic of the rah-rah in the streets is because us fellas have this kind of adrenaline thing, this testosterone thing, and it revolves around the females, the ladies, in some fashion or another. What we wear, how we wear it, what we drive, how we want to drive it, how we want to paint it, what kind of rims we want, the jewelry, the haircuts. It's not for one another.
Right.
You know, 14, you moving now, right? You moving in some circles.
Right.
You in the life.
Right.
Go to a bigger city, it's bigger life.
Right.
You know, military brat to the life. Like, what was it now looking back about you? And I'm not asking for itty bitty little details, but because right now there's young ladies who they going.
Yeah.
I'm about to get into life. Like, look at it. What is it? What, from a 14-year-old perspective, doesn't even have to be you. What is the allure of, I'm going to say the danger? Is it the adrenaline? Is it it ain't all good.
Right. For me, it was, you know, a lot of things happened in my past, you know, in my younger childhood that I didn't have control over. And it happened. And I found myself blaming my parents because I felt like they were so wrapped up into themselves and trying to find themselves, because they had me really young, that, you know, they missed what was going on with me, you know. And so I blamed them for that. And so that's where my rebellion came in. And then I didn't have that self-love, you know. But what I knew for sure was that I was going to control any and everything around me going forward.
Got you.
And so you had the rebelliousness part of me, you know, and I was intrigued by that fast life. I was intrigued by money, you know.
Obviously, you got
Yeah.
the look. We ain't gonna
Yeah.
act like anybody can move in them circles.
Yeah.
You
So
had the look at 14 to move in them
yeah.
and up. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, and at that time, I used to rap
All right.
back then. And so when I got to Virginia
Gotta know
now,
your rap name.
man,
Gotta know your rap name. This.
man, yes, Tamika, that lyrical psycho.
All right. All right. Were you nice though?
I was
Did
nice.
you have a pen?
I was nice.
Did you have
I was
pen
really, I
game?
was so nice that I was signed to Def Jam, and I was
What?
on their compilation. I was on Def
Stop.
Jam compilation album of 1994.
Stop.
Seriously, and
Sign this. I want an autograph. What?
so yes, and so
All right, wait a minute. You're not sliding that by. How? Because when you first said Virginia, I'm thinking Pharrell, Timbaland.
definitely,
That's
we
music.
were all
Missy.
working in Teddy Riley's studio in Virginia Beach. Yep.
All of them are coming to mind.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
what's the other one? The brothers. The one went to the church. I'm about to really lose it right here, cause I'm thrown. All right, wait a minute. Wait. How did they hear you? How'd you get up on the industry like that? Like,
So I was living in Portsmouth in these apartments, and on the East Coast setting, you had a cipher.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
had it was a group of guys, in the front of our apartment building, and our apartment that we lived in was right in the front, and my bedroom window was right there, and I used to just practice my rhymes in the window, and then one of them heard me, and when I came out one day just to go outside, it was like, "Hey, was that you in there?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and it was like, spit something for us, and so I did, and it was like, "Hey,
can't take this
he
right
said my
now.
brother-in-law is a manager,
right.
and he managed this group called True Heads, and True Heads they were local, but they were good, and they were they were opening a lot for up and coming, artists that came in, through Portsmouth in the 7 cities in Hampton Roads, and so our manager's name was Ben Washington, and he pulled up in his van a couple of days later, and they was like, "Hey, Wash, this the girl we was telling you about." And everybody, when I moved there, I was in high school. They called me Nebraska. They couldn't believe that there were black people in Nebraska, and so that was my nickname, Nebraska. And so he played a track for me, and he said, "I want you to say a verse." And I said my verse, and then I was done. He was like, "Oh, you can continue," and I was like, "I'm done. That's one verse." He said, "What?" He said, "Have you ever been in the studio before?" And I said, "No, why?" He said, "You just did a 16-liner effortlessly." And I was like, "Well, what is a 16-liner?" And he was like, he explained to me how it's the beat that's for the verse before the hook comes in, and the beat changes. And he said, "And you timed that perfectly. How did you know how to do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He said, "I got to get you in the studio. You're a natural." And it went on from there. But then I wasn't 18, so my mother was over my contract, and I ended up getting pregnant and got really, really sick and in and out of the hospital. And she got scared, and she was in the military. She was a single parent, and it came down to it where this is too much, because now I'm worried about your life and your health and my grandbaby. And so she ended the contract. And I have no regrets, but it was definitely a great experience. I opened up for Wu-TANG, Faith Evans. I've sat
What
in
is
the,
happening right now?
sat in the studio, next to Missy Elliott,
What is happening
Timberland.
right
I
now?
don't know if y'all
Pusha
remember
T, like-
Magoo,
Oh.
the Neptunes before the Neptunes really got popular.
Yes.
Back when the Neptunes was only known for Rex and Effects. Y'all remember that? All I want to do is zoom, zoom. Yeah, that's all they were known for at that
This is
time.
crazy.
So just being in the atmosphere when all this greatness was being created, it's a priceless experience. So
All
yeah.
right. See, texture. See,
Yeah, and that's something I don't really share. So yeah,
opening for Wu-Tang and who? Like, you don't have to say nothing beyond
yeah,
that.
yeah,
At as a teenager, young
yeah,
teen.
yeah, yeah. 14, 15, and 16.
I almost want to take a break right there. Wow. Wow. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these. Oh, she just threw that out there like, just regular day at the office. I'm sitting next to a real life sister soldier right here and didn't even know it. But I knew it. And that's why we're here. Uh, I'm amazed. I love your story already. All right, I'm captive. I'm in the show. I'm ready for the next episode. You got me for the season. Like, tell me when you discovered your female power amongst the community during those teenage years up to your 20s. Like, when did it click where you understood that you had your finger on the pulse of something that you could manipulate as far as the male female dynamic? Because you have to use
Yeah.
everything at that age to be that young to move through that crowd
Yeah.
and not get swallowed up. And
Yeah.
like you said, I built a wall. I'm controlling this.
Mm-hmm.
Then, come on, y'all got the power.
Yeah.
Y'all got the power.
Yeah.
When did you discover, hey, I got some power here?
Yeah. Well, as a young woman, like I said, I've always been a leader, and being put in that new place and that environment and having to find my way, because like I said, I didn't have any family there, and I was the oldest of my siblings. My siblings were in elementary. I was in high school, and my mother was a single parent, and you had, just because you're from Nebraska and you talk different, they couldn't quite figure me out. They would listen to how I pronunciated my words and would be like, are you from New York? Where are you from? No, I'm from Nebraska. Nebraska? But you live on a farm, and so it was like you had some that would try to bully you, you know. You had some that was just intrigued by the fact that, man, there's black people in Nebraska. Let me hear more, And then, oh, you rap too? What? So I went to Manor High School in the heart of Portsmouth, Virginia, predominantly black, and that was another thing. It was like a culture shock for me because everywhere I looked, I saw people that looked like me. It didn't seem like I was the minority as it seemed,
Here.
back home,
Right.
Here in Omaha. And so just being in that atmosphere with my own people, I felt more comfortable, but I still had to be that leader because I was the only one. I didn't have family. I didn't have, friends at that time. I had to make friends, but it was on my terms. And so I kind of used, my skills with rapping to combat like the bullying and, oh, the girls, oh, she thinks she all that. And, so most of my friends were actually males, and I maintained my self-respect to gain their respect, and being in that environment, being in a room full of men and them knowing you can't try me like that because that's not what I stand for. You know, you have to be very strong mentally, you know, and I knew that. And so, you know, coming in school, I used to actually sign autographs, on this place called The Square, and we used to do rap battles. And I would challenge anybody to, battle me in a freestyle, and I would win, and after I would win, they'd be like, let me get your autograph because I know you about to make it. And, so that helped boost my confidence,
Right.
But then I kind of got tied in, with the wrong crowds and doing some of the things that, I know I shouldn't have been doing, especially when I got, older in age and left and came back, after I had my daughter, for some reason that fast life intrigued me,
Yeah.
And I got a rush off of actually controlling it.
Okay.
Actually controlling it, because what I saw here in Omaha, like what really got me into that street life was like my female friends. It was like they were, sitting back waiting. Oh, I want to get with him because he got this and he got that, and he gonna buy me some shoes. And then when I got to Virginia, it was like the girls, like, over there on the East Coast, Reeboks
Right.
was in. It's like, he gonna buy me some Reeboks, and it's like, I'm gonna buy myself some.
Right.
Let me get that money myself. And so that was really my mentality. I'm gonna get my own. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna get my own, and I'm gonna create an alliance with these guys, so that I can get that respect and have that protection. And I don't have to give in as you would expect for a woman to give in, sexually. I kept business separate.
Right.
Right. And that's how I move today.
Right.
And most of, like my partnerships and people that I work with are men, and I still maintain that respect. And I have my husband, right by me, who has been knowing me all my life and is my first love, my first boyfriend, all of that. And from me moving and coming back, we never lost touch. And, that's my life partner, and he knows me better than anyone else does. And my husband will sit back and let me do my thing and be like, I'm right here, right here when you need me. And I appreciate and love that about him. But he just, allows me to really get out here and do my thing, and he's not intimidated, by that. And so I'm free to move how it is, how I want to move out here in the community and make the impact that I'm making. How
often do you see yourself in other young teenage girls or boys? How often are you just kind of minding your business, but then that alarm go off, that internal thing? You're like, wait a minute, you're not one of them. Are you one of those, come here, let me holler at you?
Yeah.
Or are you one watching for a while, like I got my eye on that one? Or how does that work in you?
I've watched them from a distance and just seen something in them and like, hey, let me talk to you. Or something has happened, and I find myself in a room with these young people. And when I first started with this work, I said I thought that I would relate more to the young ladies and be able to talk to them and reach them more, but it's been the young men, and I guess it's because of the life that I lived as a teenager, and I'm seeing certain strengths about them, certain things, and I've let them know what I learned out in the streets prepared me for the corporate world, because I was conditioned to be able to move, like Jay-Z say, move in a room full of vultures.
Right.
You don't get more vulture than corporate, okay?
Right.
Especially being a black woman, because you not only have to worry about your white counterparts, at the board table, but unfortunately you have to worry about people that your own people
competing.
Yes. Yeah. So the tools that I learned in the streets and moving that way prepared me for the corporate world, and I do use some of that and incorporate it in how I move corporately with my team, with my nonprofit organization. And I always say, I built my team. I'm a hip hop head. Mm-hmm. I'm an avid fan of Jay-Z. Mm-hmm. So you'll hear me use some of his quotes, especially like, on our board meetings or whatever.
Right.
But I tell my team, none of us will fall because everyone will be each other's crutches.
Right.
And that's how I design my team, whether, I have my manager's hat on in the corporate world or, with my organization or out here partnering, with other organizations or entities.